It was a short but eventful week before the Madlanga Commission. This as suspended TMPD Deputy Police Chief, that is Umashi Dhlamini's version, was overpowered by the obvious inferences of alleged tender manipulation in the city of Tshwane, with his Judah beneficial text to Sergeant Fannie Nkosi sealing the deal. And alleged political fixer Mogotsi made a return before the probe, not to give evidence, but rather to take aim at Chief Evidence Leader Advocate Chaskalson SC by seeking his recusal as the lead evidence leader on his testimony citing his conduct. So much to unpack today. I'm Canny Maphanga, and this is the Madlanga Wrap.
I want to put to you that Madlanga, the evidence will show, is the one who is receiving a large part of the proceeds of Kubis's contracts with the City of Tshwane.
I'm not aware.
And Madlanga is the nephew of Mr. Sibanyoni. You were aware of that?
I'm not aware. I heard it from you. I said I've never seen him, I've never met him.
There is an intended application for the recusal of Mr. Chaskalson as lead evidence, as evidence leader in relation to the evidence of Mr. Mogotsi.
The question is, if indeed these ad hoc services were irregular, why would they go as far as requesting money to pay for something that they know upfront this is irregular?
In a surprise twist, alleged political fixer, that is Mogotsi, returned to the Madlanga Commission armed with a complaint against Chief Evidence Leader Advocate Chaskalson SC's conduct. Mogotsi was scheduled to testify the following day, but Mogotsi had something else up his sleeve: his bid to have Chaskalson removed from his testimony.
We do confirm that there is an intended application for the recusal of Mr. Chaskalson as lead evidence, as evidence leader in relation to the evidence of Mr. Mogotsi. I'm not sure if the Commission has already received the supplementary affidavit wherein...
Yes, we've received the affidavit, but I don't think we want to go into the content or the detail. Perhaps subject to what you say, the best course to take is for Mr. Mogotsi through you to bring a substantive application for the recusal that has been mentioned by Mr. Chaskalson.
Yes, I do agree, and I've already noted through the terms of reference that the substantive application will need to be brought by our client in relation to this. We are happy, Chair, to adhere to whatever terms which are agreed between the parties in relation to this particular application.
But with regard to the application, I direct that that be filed not later than midday tomorrow.
Now, Mogotsi in his complaint lists a number of issues he seems to have with Chief Evidence Leader, that is Advocate Chaskalson, that seemingly never came up during his evidence-in-chief and cross-examination. Mogotsi at the outset says in his complaint to the Commission that his evidence sought to portray him as dishonest, relied on undisclosed material, and subjected him to aggressive and humiliating questioning. In terms of Chaskalson, Mogotsi accuses Chaskalson of referring to him as a quote-unquote state agent when no conclusion of such has been made. Mogotsi accuses Chaskalson of making direct imputations of dishonesty and attacks on his credibility by telling him that his evidence was transparently false and that he is a quote-unquote professional liar. He also accuses Chaskalson of prejudgments through the statement misdirection tactic. In addition, he accuses Chaskalson of making belittling and sarcastic remarks. Now, to unpack this further, we are joined by Alton Hart, an attorney with the UJ Law Clinic. Mr. Hart, thank you so much for joining us. You are a familiar face with SA Today, but I think this is the first time you're joining us at Connecting the Dots, so welcome and thank you for giving us your time today.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to the viewers.
Firstly, where we can start is, what do you actually make of this complaint by Mogotsi? Is it genuine, or do you think it's something that's strategic, keeping in mind that his evidence was actually heard last year and at no point did he show any level of discomfort or an intention to complain about the conduct of Advocate Chaskalson?
Now, I think it's a strategy, and for me, it's now Advocate Chaskalson is pressing on sore points and sort of half getting him into a corner, because in typical lawyer style, Advocate Chaskalson was actually saying, ask him a question now and maybe 3 days later revisit that specific aspect. Say, but you told us this and now you're saying this. Which version is the, because he's the evidence leader, he's to make sure he rigorously tests the evidence that is given by witnesses. That's his job in the commission. And for me, I think this application to get him recused is like a baby that's a stillbirth. It's a futile exercise. It won't go anywhere.
Indeed, and let's talk about the test for recusal here and what the prospects of success are. Are we looking at actual bias as a requirement or a reasonable apprehension of bias on the part of Advocate Chaskalson?
Obviously, it's a reasonable apprehension of bias, but one needs to remember, this thing we draw from our legal principles. And here, normally these recusals happen with a presiding officer. So if he was going to bring an application, it would have been against the 3 presiding officers, the chairperson with the 2 council members that's sitting with them as chairing this inquiry. That could have been to say that, because they are eventually going to be the decision makers. What Advocate Chaskalson is doing is like a prosecutor in a criminal trial. He's probing the witness on evidence that the witness and his legal team prepared. So the witness can't say he was not legally represented because he has his legal team advising him on what to say and what not to say. So then Advocate Chaskalson coming in from the other side, probing it. For me, I think that reasonable apprehension of bias, he should try and invest it with the commissioners, which is not the case. He's trying to go at the evidence leader, which is, for me, is barking up the wrong tree. The evidence leader is not your friend there. They're leading evidence. They're trying to get to the truth, to the bottom of it. And they're going to come hard at you, so you need to be prepared for that. And I think his legal representatives had to prepare him for that.
And to add to that, Brown Mogotsi is alleging that he was prejudged before he even took the stand. But we know that he's a phase 2 witness, meaning that he's an implicated person. So he came to answer to allegations that were made about him. And the references that he makes to certain remarks that Advocate Chaskalson has made, such as the quote-unquote state agent, well, that is born out of the evidence that he made before the commission that he was acting at all times as a contact agent when he was dealing with alleged cartel member Vusimuzi Cat Matlala.
No, indeed, and I think Advocate Chaskalson is not a new kid on the block. He would not bring things out of context. He would have picked up from the testimony that was given by Brian Mogotsi. And I mean, he testified very early, very nonchalantly. And I thought to myself, this chap is actually saying stuff easily legally represented, because Advocate Chaskalson just went and took what he already said and gave evidence about and sort of half put it to him to say, listen, yeah, you are telling us this, now you're saying. And he's just now sort of reconfirming what Brian Mogotsi is saying to try and make sure that he sort of narrows the chances of Brian Mogotsi changing or redirecting his evidence in a different way to say, no, that actually meant something else. So he's just trying to, and he's not going to do him any favors where you said something, now I'm going to give you a leeway to escape, because we're seeking the truth here. And I don't see anything untoward. He might perceive it as being hard, but that's how cross-examination or examination is going to work in a court of law.
But in the same breath, do the evidence leaders also need to be mindful of their conduct or how they are perceived when they are dealing with the phase 2 implicated persons? I think the phase 1 is the easier portion, but phase 2 is where it becomes a bit more adversarial, and those witnesses come in feeling that they are already being treated a certain way. So do they need to be mindful of that? I think in his complaint, he also cited issues of sarcastic remarks, such as quote-unquote James Bond, where he was referred to as James Bond in the evidence that he seems to also have taken issue with. Is this something going forward that the Commission can look at when dealing with phase 2 implicated persons?
No, indeed, and I think most probably the chairperson is a seasoned judge, and I think he would most probably speak to the evidence leaders to say, listen, yeah, I understand that you're cross-examining these guys on the evidence that they gave when they were led by other evidence leaders. So when you cross-examine the guy on evidence that was already led before this commission, try and stick to the work and not try and be sarcastic, because I think that sort of half sometimes take away from the seriousness of what what we are dealing with. And I know as much as you sit there sometimes, and I've sat in many cross-examinations where you say to yourself, but this guy is lying, and you can make a sarcastic remark, but you must withhold yourself to also keep the decorum of the institution that you are representing there, to make sure that everything's seen as, and the witness cannot come and raise these types of arguments like Brian Mogotsi is now raising, which I still think is not a good enough argument to remove Chaskalson. But if Chaskalson is removed, it doesn't take away the problem that he's facing.
Indeed, speaking on that issue, if he is successful, for example, does that give him a second bite at giving his version before the commission? Does it wipe away the previous testimony and the cross-examination, if that is the case, before the commission?
Unfortunately not, Canny. Because the thing is, remember, evidence is given under oath. If you're now going to change your version, which means you're going to give a different version under oath, that opens you up for perjury, which means that if you say on the first occasion, no, that wasn't the truth, then somewhere you are lying and you're opening yourself up for perjury. And then also your credibility goes down the drain with that, because people don't know now, are you hot or cold? Which part of you should they believe? If you are cornered, you change your version to fit the narrative. So that becomes problematic all in all. So it won't change the situation that Brian Mogotsi finds himself, and it won't wipe out what you already told the commission previously about his involvement and his role in state intelligence and the roles he played in different capacities.
All right, thank you very much, Alton Hart, for your valuable input. We'll see on the 15th of May how that particular application by Mogotsi, rather, the alleged political fixer, will turn out. Now, we know the TMPD evidence returned before the probe, where Dhlamini and Malatji faced tough questions about their alleged conduct, and I'm not sure they were able to convince the commission of their denials, as those allegations of tender manipulation are continued to be probed before the commission. All that and more after the break. And welcome back. It was another tough day on the stand for suspended TMPD Deputy Police Chief, that is Umashi Dhlamini, as texts continue to suggest that his conduct was geared towards alleged tender manipulation. This as probing showed that the bid documents he sent to Sergeant Fannie Nkosi were not publicly available, as he contended in his evidence in chief.
We have established from your answer that the information that you shared at page 511 was not publicly available. You've said that. You've accepted that that document, because that's a document you shared. You didn't just write down a list of the 435 bidders. That's not what you did. What you did is you went into the system and got a City of Tshwane document that you agree was not available to the public, the document at 511. It wasn't available to the public, and you shared that with him. So please do not repeat that that document at 511 was available to the public. It wasn't. You've settled that in your earlier answer. You go into the system, you pull out an internal document that is at 511, which contains information in an ongoing tender process, which you personally and your office are not part of. When there is a person who's in charge of that information that you could have referred Sergeant Nkosi to get that information, and the question is, why did you not do that? I know he asked you, so the answer cannot be because he asked me to help him. We know that's what he did. I'm asking a different question to you. Why did you not direct him to the person designated for that purpose when he asked you to help him?
Commissioner, I think we indicated to say Sergeant Nkosi is like a brother to me, and I took interest on him.
Okay, I have to stop you. I have to stop you. You've said that repeatedly. It doesn't answer my question.
Dhlamini further struggled to rationalize his conduct in communicating with Tshwane CFO, Gareth Nisi through Nkosi, and his involvement of Nkosi in the payment of invoices. He also refused to accept that it was improper, perhaps because he may understand that the implications of this act and what it suggests against the backdrop of the overall allegations that the arrangement was part of the alleged tender manipulation scheme.
Do you accept that involving Sergeant Nkosi, a member of the public, in resolving a payment issue with a service provider, that it was improper for Sergeant Nkosi to be involved in this? You can say no. There are only two possible answers. Only two possible answers. Your answer is either no, it wasn't improper, or it was improper, and it doesn't require an explanation.
I wouldn't use the improper, Commissioner. I'll say it was incorrect maybe for the CFO to have involved Sergeant Nkosi from the onset on this matter.
Do you accept that it was improper for you to respond to the CFO through Sergeant Nkosi? He is a member of the public. Do you accept that?
No, Commissioner. I was responding to the CFO because he made Sergeant Nkosi his extension.
So to involve a member, you involving a member of the public in resolving a payment issue, you say that was proper to do, that you involved Sergeant Nkosi?
I did not involve Sergeant Nkosi. He was
That you
the
communicate.
CFO's extension, Commissioner.
It got worse when the Commission sought to understand why Dhlamini felt that Nisi would be a Judah to Nkosi and why their relationship would be beneficial since Nkosi lost his father figure. The obvious inference here was the alleged future riches that would be produced as a result of this closeness between Nkosi and Nisi. Dhlamini, however, danced around the meaning of his own words in this text.
I want to put it to you. It is not true. You're being dishonest with us about what this message is about. Lastly, from me, in that same message, you say, compared to ubaba wako ongaseko, who and what are you referring to? This ubaba, and what did he do for Sergeant Nkosi that you say now the CFO will do for you?
Much as I indicated, there's history around that, of which I don't think I'll be able to divulge here, how Nkosi was raised at home and so forth.
I just want to know, what did he do for Nkosi that you now say the CFO will do? And this is relevant to our terms because you followed, let me finish. You followed the evidence, you've listened to the CFO's evidence, it's clear from how you're testifying. You've listened to Sergeant Nkosi's evidence, that is clear from how you are testifying. You then say, so you have that background, and you know through engagement with you, your own testimony and their testimony, that we are looking at what appears or appearances of improper and corrupt dealings relating to tender in Tshwane. You know that's the evidence that we are looking at. That's what we've been engaging with you about, and eventually we must make conclusions about. So it's a relevant question to ask you. This ubaba wako that you refer to, that you say used to do things for Sergeant Nkosi, which the CFO will now do, because that's what your message is. He will do things for you that your father used to do, who's no longer there. It's a relevant question to ask you, who are you talking about? And two, what did that person do? More importantly, what did that person do for Sergeant Nkosi, which now the CFO will do? This commission has an interest in that. So you can't say, I'm not prepared to discuss it, or I'm uncomfortable to discuss it.
In addition, the reference to taxi boss Joe Sibanyoni in the text messages began to find meaning. This as evidence shows that one of the alleged beneficiaries of tender manipulation, Gubi's 85 Solutions, is a company allegedly linked to the nephew of Sibanyoni, which would perhaps explain why it was added to the list of preferred bidders and the alleged disproportionate allocation of sites.
You see, I want to put to you that Madlanga Commission, the evidence will show, is the one who is receiving a large part of the proceeds of Gubis's contracts with the City of Tshwane. Are you aware of this?
I'm not aware.
And Madlanga is the nephew of Mr. Sibanyoni. You were aware of that?
I'm not aware. I heard it from you. I said I've never seen him. I've never met him.
Now, the Commission stayed on this subject of alleged tender manipulation with the return of suspended TMPD Director for Asset Protection Services, Malatji, who is accused of clearing the way for the allocations of sites to Gubis, an act that bled the city of millions for 5 months. Malatji appeared more confident as he introduced a different proposition to the Commission about the allegations he faces.
I've annexed proof of requests by the Chief of Police in respect of which requests she was supported by the CFO and the city manager approves. Now, the question is, if indeed these ad hoc services were irregular, why would they go as far as requesting money to pay for something that they know upfront this is irregular? I did not carry out the instruction of Commissioner Spies immediately because of the following. The instruction was wide as it included cancellation of ad hoc services which were not affected. That's reason number one. Number two, the instruction was not directed to the initiator of the ad hoc services in question.
These question marks Malatji leaves in the air does not, however, explain why he did not follow TMPD Deputy Commissioner Revo Spies' termination instruction and simply cancel the ad hoc services, which resulted in an allocation to Gubis due to Malatji's failure to comply with the instruction.
And do you see that in your email you said deployment to these 3 sites, to these 2 sites, was to commence at 1800 hours on that day?
Yes, it is my...
So you did authorize those deployments, and when Mr. Piri issued letters in respect of these 2 sites, it was because you had authorized these deployments?
No, they, Commissioner, they, I admit I issued instruction.
While it is not clear whether Brown Mogotsi will be successful in his latest stint, it is clear that the obvious inferences suggest alleged tender manipulation within the city of Tshwane. But let's hear from you as the viewers on your thoughts regarding this week's hearings.
Mina ngokubona kwami mele bafunisise ukuthi bayisale emuva ukuthi baze bayithola ukuthi why angafuni ukuthi attestify that guy. Yeah. Into kuphela engayikhuluma kanjalo.
Kwalesi isikhathi singazi ukuthi maybe yena angasinikeza mara mina ngokwami ngombono wami ngendlela ngibona ngakho kukhona kufihlayo kukhona ukuthi idala bakwenza thina ukuthi besingakwazi manje khani angafuni ukuthi kurevealwe uyabo mara mina ngokwami umbono futhi ngithini i-evidence ikhona kibo bayiphethe but baloku basidala into ne1 abaconde ngco ngawo ama-investigation tot babona ukuthi batholana but for me uBrown yena uyazi yena phansi ukuthi wenzeni.
What do you know about the Madlanga Commission?
That one I can't talk anything about it. I don't know.
Never heard of it?
I never hear about it.
It's waste of money, Commission. Waste of money. Really waste of money. People are suffering outside, then this thing is waste of time and money. And it will be a lot of money to be used there. So now I think they must stop it once. And then those people, obviously they ask the people, they know what they did. So what they're supposed to do, they must penalize those people, so then that the story must get done as quickly as possible, because the state money is being wasted for nothing. Yeah, of course, the truth, they know what happened. You know what I mean? Yeah, they know.
All right, a lot of mixed views there, from some suggesting that only Brown Mogotsi knows what he is up to, some not even knowing that the commission exists, and others questioning its value by referring to it as a waste of time. Now the commission will resume its 100th day of hearings tomorrow. Can you believe it? With a new witness expected on the stand at 9:30 a.m. Join us at 4 p.m. next week to unpack further gems that are expected to come out this week.